All right, so Vinny recommended a film for us. Let's talk about it.
Yes, I recommended a classic horror film, my all-time favorite horror movie. It is The
Let's
Thing
go.
from 1982, directed by John Carpenter. So the movie is about a group of research scientists in Antarctica on the first week of winter. And on the first week of winter, they discover a Norwegian helicopter chasing a dog into their base camp. And after the Norwegian pilot and his friend ends up getting killed in the ensuing conflict. They bring in the dog, but with the dog comes a secret. I guess I already marked this as spoilers, I guess, but whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a spoiler conversation.
yeah. So yeah, with this dog is the reveal is that this dog is actually not a dog, but a creature from an alien spaceship that was discovered by the Norwegians earlier a couple weeks or months ago, and they don't really know. And this alien has the ability to imitate any life form it wants as long as it eats it and absorbs its cells, essentially. The inner conflict is basically drawn from all of these very distinct and memorable characters all attacking each other and becoming paranoid of each other and just very much just not trusting anyone. And that's
Yep.
I think it's emblematic. The whole point of the movie is very emblematic in the one scene of our main character McCready, played by Kurt Russell, where talking on a he's talking on a radio, and he says to himself, nobody trusts anybody anymore, and we're all very tired. And that's basically the thesis statement for what the movie is. And it's a monument of character work and world building and horror filmmaking, practical effects, cinematography, acting. It's just all around just a fucking fantastic movie in every way, shape, and form.
Couldn't have
So,
said it better myself. That was excellent.
Agreed.
Um, so this movie was like one of these classics that I never got to watch, and this was my first time experiencing it for this conversation. And like always before going into films with such like a reputation, oh, everyone's saying it's like a masterpiece. I always have this like little fear in me that I won't like it as much.
Yeah.
But this time, I must say, I wasn't disappointed. This film, I thought it was like it's amazing. It's so ahead of its time, both in like cinematography, especially visual effects and like practical effects. Also the acting, I found it all like super thrilling and entertaining. It feels like it doesn't have like a second wasted. It's just there's no filler, no bullshit. Just get to uh, the point of it, and it does it so well. One, like when I started the film, it kind of reminded me initially of another film we talked about a few months ago, which was Day of the Dead.
Oh, actually, yeah.
Yeah,
That
see
kind of
that.
makes sense.
like,
Yeah.
and it probably drew inspiration from The Thing, maybe.
Hmm.
It might have been like like too soon for it to be influenced by, but it definitely has the same vibe. And I will say that The Thing pulls it off better, like in a better way. This kind of
100%.
thing that it's like the group from the inside, both like literally and metaphorically,
Yeah.
kind of makes them turn against each other. And it's done like in um such an amazing way, and it always keeps the viewer involved in what's next and anticipating. It's also like, I can't say it's like one of those films you go into and so like, oh, I've seen this before and that before. Like, to put it in comparison with the Dead trilogy, this is what I felt about the first film, Night of the Living Dead, which feels like I've seen this before, and I know it's monumental to the history of films of its kind, but I've seen this before and it's not new to me. But this was like nothing I've seen before,
Yeah.
and I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so this was awesome. This was my second time watching this classic. This movie looks so good, especially like in 4K, because the colors and the lighting pop out so much. There's such like a stark contrast and like with how the shades and like the darkness surrounds the characters, which obviously adds to like the already like fantastic atmosphere of the movie. What I love about this movie is how right away it pretty much establishes like a camaraderie between all of these characters, and I really love that. And throughout the movie you never lose that sense of like that these people have been knowing each other for like so long.
Even when they're at each other's throats, you still know that they're like that. They still have like that feel of brotherhood.
But it gets they get more and more, obviously they get more and more drifted apart. There's so much paranoia in this movie, and that's one of the core themes of it. And I do think it's John Carpenter exploring these types of things truly at his peak, because he's expressed in the past like this was, I think, his favorite movie to do. And you can tell like there's just so much passion and love in each of every department. Like I don't think anybody half-assed anything. And it sucks that it didn't make much of an impact during its time, because a lot of people, hated it. There was no audience for it. Critics slammed it. Audiences didn't go to see it. It like bombed. It was really sad to see like, John Carpenter lose his credibility somewhat. Yeah.
Just like Rob Zombie in Halloween 2.
Yeah. He lost
and,
almost
Richard Kelly in Southland Tales.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
It's sad because it did leave a mark in the industry, and he lost, faith, something that progressively got worse, unfortunately. But I do think this is just his absolute best direction, absolute best like writing, and even score. Even though he did work with Ennio Morricone, I'm sure you guys know that he did tweak it a little bit and didn't use much of it. And as you guys know as well, Tarantino used it later on with The Hateful Eight, which is incredible.
Yeah, I wrote that in my notes. There's like a distinct track. I think it's the moment where they find the ship. There's like that there's like that violin track that goes like that. That's
do you think something like that is annoying like in modern day, but it works so well.
It's so effective.
Yeah.
I love that track. I listen to the Hateful Eight score sometimes just because it's so fucking unique, and it all kind of originates from this movie. There's even an unused track from this movie called Bestiality, I think.
I know exactly.
And that track was used in the Hateful Eight, ironically during a scene with Kurt Russell. I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm just saying that ironically it's used during a scene with Kurt Russell. I find it funny how that.
I think it is also definitely intentional, considering like the fact that the Hateful Eight is also about a bunch of these very distrustful characters all stuck together in the middle of the
Yeah, but there's no brotherhood there. They're all just like greedy. They're all just terrible fucking people and awful bastards. Yeah, but that's honestly on its own awesome.
One thing that we didn't mention is like how abrasive the sound design is. Like I watched it with headphones.
Oh yeah.
And I was like constantly washed with this sound that made the film like such a more intense experience for me.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah, all the jump scares are just so fucking impactful and fucking
even the ones that use jump scare audio, which is usually a pet peeve for me, but like here I honestly think it's used to some sort of effect that I can get behind. Even though I still feel a bit weird about them, I don't feel like I'm not like, oh yeah, take that moment away, because honestly I like there's like a jump scare with Blair jumping out behind Gary that clearly uses jump scare audio. But the moment that follows is so effective that I honestly don't that my like annoyance with the jump scare audio is completely nullified, and I don't feel at all dissatisfied with the moment, because what follows is just so creepy and unsettling that I just don't care.
There's a good way to use jump scares, and then there's the bad way. I would say the 2011 thing uses it the bad way, I would say, which we'll get into in a bit.
We'll get to that later. If you don't mind, I wanted to bring up something about the jump scares and why I think they're so effective in these movies, because
go ahead.
There are like three specific jump scares. I think of the one. Who is the guy who had like the candle, and then that jump scare happens when like some shadow passes him in the hallway, like in the middle of the dark. Who's that character's name again?
That was I think that was Fuchs. I think
Yeah,
that was
Fuchs.
Fuchs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's that one, and I think what works with that jump scares typically are okay in my book when it's like it specifically exists. It affects characters within the universe of the film because there are so many jump
Yeah.
scares that are out where it clearly just exists to make the audience jump rather than like affecting things in the universe that actually make sense.
Yeah.
And like that's an instance where that character would definitely be shocked if he just saw a random person in the middle of the dark just cross paths without like acknowledging him. And I think the best jump scare in the movie is definitely the one during the blood test scene.
Oh
Because
yeah,
course,
the
yeah.
screech
Yeah.
is so good.
Yeah.
one, yeah, not only just like the screech sound effect that clearly like, and that just builds into like another incredible scene where like Windows basically like opens up like a fucking book and like eats that motherfucker. And
I think it was
like
actually Palmer that eats Windows.
Palmer
Yeah.
eats Windows, right? Yeah. And yeah, with that, and I think what also helps it out, I went through some of the trivia, and according to what they noted, what I also noticed with the 4K release, the hand that holds the little blood test plate or whatever, that's a prosthetic hand, and that
Mhm.
explains how like the giant prosthetic like thing creature like jumps out of the blood when Kurt Russell sticks the hot wire onto the plate. But
I
like it used in
legitimately
every
did not know that. That just added a
yeah.
whole lot of appreciation.
No,
Holy
yeah,
shit.
and the reason I think it works so well is because it's used in like every shot and more than just the shot that's just the jump scare. And I think that helps you sort of lure yourself into a false sense of security where eventually you like if you were paying attention you'd see it and be like that's a fake hand. Is something going to happen with that hand at some point? But then it keeps going and then the scene just keeps happening and then
Mhm.
nothing happens and you're like, "Oh, okay, you let your guard down." And the scene like it goes long enough that you kind of forget the jump scare is going to happen. And
Yeah.
then right when it happens, it's still very impactful. Yeah.
I could say
There's
the
other
same
things.
thing about the kills
Yeah. There's
because
other.
there's enough of a space between like the death of Bennings, the
Mhm.
guy who got shot, and the doctor who got his hands eaten by the chest.
Mhm.
Like there's enough where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, these guys are okay. They're kind of on top of the scenario.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're okay now. And then like Norris gets that heart attack, and then his chest opens up, and then
Mhm.
that moment starts. That whole iconic scene, which I'll talk about in detail later.
You gotta
It
be
like
fucking kidding.
it's like yeah, exactly. Like it's so effective. The space that it's all about the space they leave in between the kills. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
just not about the kills, and you just want to see like how long you can go leaving no kill like with no kills and just let everything slowly build up and let everyone slowly let their guard down and then like just find the perfect moment to strike.
I think what also just helps with each scene is that characters are acting in ways that aren't like really transparently lazy that just exist to like forward the story. Every time a
Yeah.
character makes a deliberate decision or like does something that's like partially like a little ridiculous, it's always perfectly within character and there's always
Yeah,
some
but
semblance of
yeah,
rationality.
exactly.
They're very smart characters and they don't act
Yeah,
like
they're scientists. Like they
yeah,
have to be. Like all these guys are like in this place because it's their job. So if they
yeah.
were making a ton of shitty, dumb decisions that scientists would not make,
Hmm.
then I couldn't
Yeah.
sympathize with them. They
Yeah.
use logic. Like the scene with Blair accusing Clark. Like yeah, it's quick and kind of out of nowhere, but Blair realizes that the thing imitates other people and
Hmm.
Clark was alone with the dog for a while. I mean, if I were Blair, I would think the same fucking thing,
Yeah,
because I don't
absolutely.
know who to trust. And I think that moment, moment is just a great, an excellent example into why I love the characters. They don't
Yeah.
just blindly trust each other because oh we've known each other for years. They use logic to find the most logical solution to their questions,
One
and
last thing
that
about
is
that I wanted to say was I think that scene is like a perfect example of the movie's like kind of small sense of dark humor that they put in at points Because there's
Yeah.
that whole bit like Kurt Russell, he jumps in and he like opens the door. He's like, "Hey Blair, we need to ask you about that blood test." And then it just hard cuts to like Wilford Brimley. He's like, "I'm not gonna hurt anybody anymore. I'm feeling really better now. I'm gonna come back inside." And like right in the background, there's a fucking noose. Like
I know that's so
up.
darkly hilarious. That's like so dark yet kind of funny. Like it's just like
I'm not gonna hurt anybody. Like
I'm not gonna hurt anybody as I tie a noose.
There's many little moments like that that I love, especially towards the beginning when he's playing chess wizard and he's just like, "Ah, fuck you," and
Fuck
destroys
you,
the
computer, you
computer.
cheating bitch.
yeah, that's the only female. That's the only female role in the movie. It's an uncredited voice cameo from shit. What's her name?
Adrienne Barbeau. Yeah,
Adrienne Barbeau. Yeah,
What was she in?
she's in Escape from New York and The Fog.
So is
I've
this a
seen
dude's
Escape.
rock movie?
Yeah, it is a dude's rock movie. It's very much a dude's
No.
Another thing I really love about the film is that it is a perfect example of quick but smooth. It is not it is a fast moving film for sure, and in the first 15 minutes the main plot is already going, but it feels natural and smooth. Like in a lot of horror films, you get introduced to the place and then they introduce the characters and then there's just 15 minutes of bullshit and dumb, stupid, poor development and then the kills start happening. No. In The Thing, the characters are developed as the film goes on. You don't need to know about their past or like their relationships with each other. It can be communicated throughout the film. And I think this movie is a perfect example of something that gets the movie going and gets the main plot moving, but leaves the development for the characters to happen throughout the film. And it's developed almost through their interactions, you get a feel for their relationships and how they feel about each other as the film goes on. This does the opposite of what most horror movies do, because most horror movies just waste the first 20 minutes introducing very shitty, lame, paper thin characters who barely have any like development, and then they just waste 20 minutes on them talking to each other, and then the kills start happening.
Yeah, which is strange to see how like people like Roger Ebert criticized it for not having enough character development.
That makes
Which I
no sense to me. That
completely
legit makes
disagree with.
no sense
Yeah.
to me.
It's something that progresses throughout the movie, and it's as you said, it's completely through their interactions. Because in the beginning of the movie, a clever thing that Carpenter did that I really liked was how they were presented with like having shades and to where we can't see their eyes specifically, and they're mostly like medium shots to long shots. And as the film goes on, we obviously get more closer shots and more tight claustrophobic shots to progressively enhance their paranoia and their pure coldness. Yeah,
that was the other thing I wanted to bring up during the blood test scene. Is there's a really really intelligent little detail with how their eyes are lit in the scene, where pretty much every character has like a nice little eye light. There's a nice white dot in both of their in all of their pupils except for Palmer, and that's supposed to be like
who's the Thing. Yeah,
really really subtle hint in the cinematography to let you see who the Thing is. It's so
I didn't realize that until like my third watch of this movie, and this watch was like my fourth watch. But my third watch, I noticed that, and I was like, oh shit. And I also love when the payoff starts with Palmer becoming the Thing. I love the shaking. I don't know why. I just love every single detail in the scene, and like the shaking when he's discovered, like how he's like just violently shaking, and then his face starts bulging and bleeding, and then it opens up to become a mouth. It's like ugh. Every single design of the Thing in every single payoff is creative, and it also brings mystery to what the Thing really looks like. And I'm just gonna say it. I don't give a fucking shit what the Thing really looks like. I only care about the creative payoffs on its own, because clearly it imitates different forms and it becomes different things. I don't care what the original form is because it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how it imitates others and the creativity that goes into that. Like another detail I really love is when Norris's head or like I guess the head Norris's head, when it falls off, it becomes the spider head. There's like a moment where the mouth like opens up and you can see Norris's human tongue, but an alien tongue comes out too. So there's effectively like two tongues in his mouth.
God, this movie's so gross. I watched it
I
with my
know.
girlfriend for the first time, and they literally could not watch half of it just due to how disgusting it fucking was.
Oh
Like,
man, my girlfriend loves horror movies, and I showed this to her for the first time. She hadn't seen it, and she loves it. And I wish she was going to be on this episode, but she has school, sadly.
It was even intense for 1982. Like people were calling this so revolting and disgusting. It's
Yeah,
like,
this is
damn,
revolting
this
and
like pales in
disgusting, yeah.
comparison to like what comes now. Especially with like something with like Brain Dead, for example, by Peter Jackson.
yeah, I just watched that for the first time recently. That movie was sickening.
Fucking
Jesus.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Another thing with the blood test scene that makes it effective for me is I think it's more of a personal thing, but the idea of a scalpel cutting into my finger like that
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
makes my skin crawl, because that's a very tiny blade, and tiny blades can hurt a shit ton. If like I know, because when I was younger, I cut myself on a switchblade on my thumb, and literally I remember that being like a very distinct and almost like high-pitched pain, if that makes sense. Like a high-pitched noise? Picture that if it were like a cut in your finger kind of thing, you know?
Oh,
That's what
yeah.
it felt like to me. And like and I think that seeing this scene with that in my head, this scene has always been creepy to me because I just don't like the idea of a scalpel cutting my finger.
Even though it is like very basic practical effects, I still
Yeah,
feel all the
it's
weight for it. Like it's just so
yeah.
impactful still.
Yeah, and I love that there's no music in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
It just slowly builds up. You really don't know who's the thing and who's not.
There's that great scene where the dog, who by the way, Jeb the dog, that dog actor, fucking like insane that they were able to get a
Holy
husky
crap!
that like
Yeah.
howl and like moan every 5 seconds. That is like one of the most silent huskies I've ever seen in a movie.
All of the
And
dog
like,
actors are great.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
And
and there's
also,
that.
it's surprisingly alien-like. Like, when he sits
Mhm.
down in the pen, like that alone just looks so weird. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I don't know if it's like my knowledge of knowing it's a thing, but just the way that it looks, it stands out to me as like, yeah, that doesn't look comfortable.
Also in the scene where the dog goes back when Mac and I think Doc and Child they go back to the Norwegian base. There's that scene where like the dog goes into one of the cabin members' rooms, and I'm pretty sure that was like a crew member that they
Yes,
dressed
and
up
there's a lot of,
to like
and
Mhm.
there's a yeah, and
be
but
the
there's also a
silhouette.
lot of speculation on who that was in the movie.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm
the whole
wondering who
point
you
is
guys
that
think it was.
I think the whole point is you're not supposed to know. The whole point
Of
is
course.
that, I mean,
Yeah.
that's because that also delves into
Yeah,
like what makes the ending so good. Because like,
I
Yeah.
know, but I also just love speculating who's who and who it might be. So I'm honestly just curious on who you guys thought that first person infected is or was.
really quick,
I have my personal
yeah, I thought it
thoughts.
was Norris. It looked like Norris.
I thought it was Palmer, honestly. Only
Yeah.
because Norris having the heart attack. I mean, he died by a heart attack. Like I don't know how would a thing like insinuate a heart attack?
I
Like
mean, I think you could easily insinuate it as the fact that everything surrounding that scene is very much based on. There are definitely people like the thing specifically know that Kurt is not, that Mac is not infected, and that Mac is like he doesn't fuck around because he was like willing to blow up the entire building. So
he
he
was willing to
needed
kill
some way.
everybody. Yeah.
Like he needed some way to properly like let their guard down and escape properly. And I think that's
Uh-huh.
like the thing is very defensive in a lot of scenes because the thing never really reveals itself unless it's absolutely necessary to get out of a situation
Yeah,
or when it's
exactly.
trying somebody else. So like
The only times it gets discovered mid-assimilation are with the dogs and Bennings. And I think
Yeah.
at that
Mhm.
point it learns that it can't just infect anyone on a whim. It has to
Mhm.
choose its moment. And it makes the alien more threatening to me. And
Mhm.
also, I think the fact that it has a distinct weakness is important too. I never get engaged by villains who are invincible. Like Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason, they're difficult, they're impossible to kill, and it just kills the tension. But I think the fact that this alien can be killed, it leaves a layer of like you're able to believe that the humans can make it out, and it makes it more effective when someone doesn't.
Mhm.
I'm glad that this alien has a distinct weakness that you can identify, so it doesn't feel like that they're just going up against fucking God the entire movie. I hate that shit. I just don't like it. I never liked it in horror movies. And I like that this movie actually presents a character who can be killed, but it's just really difficult, you know? And I wish that more horror movies explored this. It's okay to have a villain who can be killed. You just have to make it in service of the plot. And I think here it's perfect because I think that like the whole fact that it takes place in Antarctica is also very purposeful too, because it's ironic that in the coldest place on Earth, the only thing that can kill it is fire. And I
I do
also
like that.
believe that the setting is not only unique, but it also provides that feeling of isolation, you know, which adds to the stakes and fear. So when the shit hits the fan, like you know that they can't go anywhere. They're stuck here. And that really adds a lot. I think there are a lot of horror movies where it's like you can just get in the car and leave. But with these guys, no, you can't. They have to stay
Yep.
here because what lies beyond is just nothing.
Even then, they definitely can't because they would have to quarantine after finding some shit like that.
Yeah,
Like,
and also they can't escape anyway because all the ways of escape were destroyed because of Blair.
mhm.
Which is also another moment where I can relate to the character. Like, I'm not gonna say that like Blair destroying all the ways of escape was like the best decision, but honestly, I think it was a great decision because it just means that no one can escape, you know?
Bruh, you guys notice like the shit in their pupils? I barely know like the fucking names of the characters, okay?
I've seen this movie so many times that it's like I remember the names of the characters just by like the back of my hand, but at the same time I did know like the thing about this movie that I also really love is that the characters are distinct, and it's not even through their names but also like their personalities. Like Blair's the one that goes crazy. Clark is kind of like the mysterious one that you never really trust. Windows is kind of like the one who's he's kind of like the middleman, you know? He's the radio operator, and then there's Knowles who's kind of like the one who isn't really qualified. He's the kitchen cook, so he's not really like a like
Yeah, like I get that, but I don't know. I'm always having trouble like remembering stuff like this, like names of characters
yeah, no,
and stuff like
that's
that. I don't know.
nothing against you. I honestly like
Happens when you watch an ensemble piece. So like,
yeah, you have trouble at first, but I guarantee you that that most likely on a second watch or a third watch it'll all click because it like the characters are distinct like that.
I mean, if you would like me to name the cast of the Brown Bunny, I can, but not something
Yeah,
like
but
this.
the cast of the Brown Bunny is two people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
you
kind
know,
of love that their names specifically are intentionally, I guess, cold and almost lifeless because, you know, you have child's windows, things that are, I guess, could be seen as lifeless, and these characters are cold somewhat. What makes their characters truly great is that their performances truly elevate beyond what they, I guess, seemed on paper, because what I think all of these actors did well is convey that sense of each internal struggle that they have, you know, and all their, I guess, biases towards people. All of them have someone they specifically trust and someone they equally don't like, stuff like that.
yeah, because Blair doesn't trust Clark, but he trusts McCready. Fuchs doesn't trust anybody, but also trusts McCready. And I think Knowles, I think Knowles had like a moment with Childs when they thought McCready was a thing. Like Knowles trusted everybody else, and he distrusted McCready. Like there's a dynamic there that feels natural, you know.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the dog scene? I have a couple things to say about that. My
Ugh.
girlfriend hated it, so that means it's good because she loves dogs. And if a dog lover hates it, then that means it's effective.
I mean, I felt it whenever the dog tried to escape through the fence, you know, just gnawing away at the
Ooh,
fence.
I know.
I was
I
like,
know.
Get
that's
out of there,
terrible.
dude.
That really, yeah, that
Yeah.
moment was very tough for me to
Effective,
watch
man.
the first time because I think that sense of desperation really kills it for me because I'm just like, oh no, you know that they're like trying everything they can to get out. You kind of know in the back of your head that they're already dead, you know.
Just like
Also,
all those details
oh,
with
go
the
ahead.
gags, like how fucking like the minute once the dog's like head it like splits open like a flower, and then the skull just like kind of falls out, and the tongue
Yeah.
starts waving everywhere. It's so gross. Ugh.
I know, and then it turns into like a weird spider creature. And then you see like the gross head of the dog later, like that's like no fur and all skin. Ugh, it's so gross. And then like I also love the high strings during that scene. Like it's sorry, not the high strings. I love the sound of the wind outside. You know, when Clark is first bringing the dog inside, you hear that wind outside, and it adds so much, and it makes the scene like 10 times more atmospheric, you know. And also just the payoff with the practical effects. No shortage. There's no shortage of creature payoffs and creative payoffs with just the way the alien looks. And I think the dog scene is just, I think it was a great choice for like the start of the movie, like the first thing.
One of the other reasons I think this movie is so effective is how it's very ambiguous with a lot of
Yeah.
its world building. Because the rules they establish are pretty well, like, concretely consistent. But
Yeah.
I'm glad that they don't oversell everything because it really puts you in the mind of the characters. Because the characters, especially like when they go to that like Norwegian base and they just see all that shit that's just like somebody like slit their throat, there's an axe on the wall, and you're just like,
Yeah.
what the fuck happened here? And you're like really in the
And then the
minds of the
split-faced
characters.
alien.
Yeah, and just like the only thing they know about it is it's an alien from outer space. It can imitate other life forms, and its only weakness is fire.
That's
And I
all you
think
know, and that's all you really need to know.
I think the only issue I have with the writing is that one scene where Blair is on the computer. And I just think it's a little cheesy and ridiculous that the computer
Oh
is
yeah. The like the simulation.
where it's like estimated time of like full infection, the entire world will be infected in like 3 days or some shit like that. And I'm like,
It was
how
3
the fuck-
years. It was
how is this computer
25,000 hours.
Yeah, I'm just like, wait, what? How the fuck does that computer like? Yeah, it's just it's a little ridiculous, but like, it's such a minor issue that I have.
It's
Yeah.
such like a small detail.
Yeah,
But
it's
even
very.
then, like
It doesn't
in modern
matter.
day, I think I was reading up on trivia, and apparently it's now possible with modern day computers because someone created it. I think I went to the website where it was, and I didn't run it on my computer, but I looked at like videos on YouTube. I think I found something, and it's like they figured it out how to do it. So yeah, it was inaccurate for the time, but nowadays I can forgive it because at least we know the technology can exist.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
we also know that
Yeah.
this is an alien invasion movie, so I can believe that this is just an alternate universe. Like, it's
Yeah.
an easy thing to overlook.
I think my issue with it more stems from the fact that it's like a scene that serves to like be expository and
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would
it
be my
is.
issue too.
the audience.
But it's such a small like moment of exposition that doesn't
I
really
don't give
bother
it.
me.
Yeah, I don't give a
Especially
shit,
compared
and-
to like the prequel,
Yeah.
The
which
remake.
just so
God.
it's just so
where it's literally mostly exposition.
yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the ending?
There's no
great.
fucking debate. There's no fucking debate on whether Childs is a thing or not. He obviously is. I never understood why there was debate. 'cause
Nah, don't
it's
see it
very
that way.
clear.
That was actually something I wanted to talk about because I don't think
Yeah, I don't-
I'm
I don't
aware
think
that
yeah.
the intention of the scene is not that whether Childs is the thing or not. It's whether Mac believes that Childs is the thing.
Yep.
And because that's the whole thing of like I've heard so many people talk about the theories is like
That
is Childs
makes
the
sense.
thing or
I
is
can
he
get
not?
behind that.
You like see his breath or anything, but like you can see a little bit of fog out of his breath. But like the whole point of the ending of that scene is that even after that supposed final climax and you're into the denouement, Child shows up out of nowhere and with like
Yeah.
no inkling of how he got there, and now Mac is like, where the fuck were you? And he's like, that entire scene is just so emblematic of the themes of the movie, and it's like even after
It's a
the
perfect
supposed
ending.
even after that like supposed final conflict happens, the paranoia is still there, and the characters can't get rid of it, and they're
I
gonna
know.
die that way. Like it's just so impactful. Like
My thing is that like I don't like it when people just constantly say that like it's ambiguous as to whether he's a thing or not because Carpenter himself confirmed that he was. So
Did
it's
he?
like I remember he said on Reddit in February of 2013.
Because I know Dean Cundy specifically took out the glint in both of their eyes, so it can be even more ambiguous. Because I've
know.
heard Carpenter wanted it that way. The point is, it doesn't matter who it is.
No, I know. I'm just saying that like I never understood why this is now a debate because now Carpenter himself has confirmed it. He said that he never understood. I'm reading it off from his mouth. He never understood why there was any confusion because it said in the last scene, and I quote, Kurt Russell and Keith David staring each other down, harshly backlit. It's completely and glaringly obvious that Kurt Russell is breathing and Keith David is not. So it's never been a piece of debate for me. I've never understood why people debated it because I think that's obvious. I get that the point of the scene is that it's not about whether he is a thing or not, it's about whether McCready thinks he's a thing. And that makes the scene effective for me. Not the debate on whether he's a thing or not. It's about whether that paranoia and distrust of each other is still alive and well, which it is. And that just really is a perfect cap to the film.
For some situations like that, I think I'm going to implement a little bit of a death of the author from that perspective, because of course John Carpenter is very valid on that, but I think it's sort of like how that instance is with like how Martin Scorsese views the ending of Taxi Driver, because I remember Martin Scorsese is like, yeah, that ending completely happened, that wasn't in his head, he's like famous now, and like that's another instance of like a very ambiguous ending where everybody's like, oh, did he actually kill them? Or like all that stuff.
I see what you're saying. I can get behind that. I can get behind that.
I mean, obviously, I don't want to negate his opinion because he made the movie.
No, absolutely not.
I feel like I want to like be as like objective to like what's in the movie as opposed to what the character, as opposed to like what the filmmakers say, because like there's like a debate that I've had with other people about Death of the Author, where there's a lot of people that I know that very much don't believe in it. And to that, I usually say, okay, so if like George Lucas woke up one day and said that Star Wars was a movie about a penguin sitting on a chair, would you believe him? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like
no, I get that. I'm willing to get behind that. I'm not trying to like be a thing where it's like, oh, Carpenter said it, he was, so that's the definite right answer, and I'm right and you're wrong. Nah. That's not what I was saying. But like I'm just saying that like I never understood how people get so heated over the debate, you know? Like, there've been, like, fights over this, and I just don't get why. Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. Who gives a shit? They're both the last people on the continent.
They're both gonna fucking die anyways.
They're both gonna die. It does not matter.
That's the real sadness.
The
ultimate heroic act is them just freezing to death.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that's the other reason I think so many people, like, when it came out, just, like, did not like the movie, because it's just so nihilistic and just bad. That whole ending is just really emblematic of that entire
experience. It came around the time, like the same time around E.T.'s release, so it's like there's so many like different juxtapositions with all these other movies that I'm sure audiences just weren't ready for.
Mom, I can't wait to see that. I saw E.T. I can't wait to see that new movie with the new alien. Oh no! He just killed the dog and sprayed it with acid. Oh.
This is unrelated, but it's so stupid. When I saw, like, I think it was Stranger Things, and one of the characters had the Thing poster, and you know it obviously takes place in the 80s, and it's like nobody liked that movie in the 80s.
No, yeah, I never. Yeah, a lot of pop culture movies do that, where they like praise movies that at the time were not praised.
Exactly.
Like no one liked The Thing back then, or at least not a lot of people liked The Thing. So I never understood like why 80s movies would have like, oh yeah, The Thing, that new classic. It's like no one fucking said
that. In the season premiere of Stranger Things season 3, like there's like a packed theater and they go to see fucking Day of the Dead. Like
oh god.
Yeah, no one liked that movie either when it came out. It's like it doesn't make sense. I don't know. It's like I get pop culture praise and like, oh yeah, the 80s were the fucking best, but it's like, yeah, okay, but like no.
It happens everywhere. Even Carpenter did it in Halloween, where they watched the original Thing, you know? Cuz I know he loves that movie.
I think they did a similar thing in I can't remember what movie it was. Was it Friday the 13th? Where like they're watching Evil Dead or something?
Maybe?
I'm trying to remember. There's like a movie where
Chainsaw Massacre and Freddy got fingered.
Yeah, no, it's no, but like in one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, a character is watching Evil Dead, and then I remember that.
I mean, I don't really have much to say about like The Thing from Another World. It's a very like cheesy movie it's very much just like the most generic 50s movie. The Thing doesn't show up for like 50 minutes. It's just a horrendous
I don't know. I enjoyed it. Like it had like a kind of rocky and kind of boring start, but it kind of got interesting. I don't know. Like I won't call it like a masterpiece, anything outstanding, but it was like a kind of fun watch, I'd say.
That's valid. I wasn't really paying attention to a lot of it as it went along. I just got kind of bored. I don't really
I was gonna watch the prequel, but like I thought to myself, do I really need to? Like it looks so bad.
Do you care if we spoil it then?
No, I don't care.
Okay, good.
Can
I
you
don't
spoil
think
it,
I'm gonna
though?
watch it anyway.
Well, I want to say one more thing, and it's kind of about the ending entirely, like the ending, like fight scene, quote unquote, between McCready and the alien, and also just that whole scene. There are a lot of people who kind of criticize that scene for not having like a big payoff with a big fight, and I kind of never really understood that. You
Why
still
isn't
get a
that-
big giant alien, and you still even get like a cheesy one-liner. Like, what more do you want?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in character for him too, because you
Yeah.
know, in the beginning of the
No,
movie,
exactly.
we have
I'm
this
not- there's nothing wrong
foreshadowing.
with-
Yeah,
yeah.
this little like hint in his character where like he just tends to blow things up, and
He's
it's
just like,
in
he's just like,
character
"Ah,
for
fuck
him.
you
Just
too." Like,
yeah,
you know.
he doesn't
He's a
give a shit.
wizard.
And also, I just want to say that like the moment where like Blair sticks his fingers into Gary's mouth, I think that is the creepiest moment of the entire film. Mainly because there's no scream. It's just like you hear,
Yeah, it's
like,
fucking horrifying.
ugh.
It's just guys being dudes.
Yeah, I don't recall sticking my fingers into my boys' mouths, but I.
All right, so this prequel is so unnecessary.
Yeah.
I have
Alright.
several notes about this movie because it pissed me
Go
the
ahead.
fuck off.
Yeah,
So, on the other
Terrible.
hand, where The Thing 1982 is a movie that features really brilliant writing, cinematography, visual effects,
Yep.
and just really strong everything, The Thing 2011 just fucking throws all of that out the window just for the sake of Easter eggs and just essentially like capitalizing on a previous existing IP. And it's like one of the earliest movies to really do that, because like we look at it now and it's like the oversaturation of all of these like prequels and like sequels that all exist to essentially like really just overcompensate over things that existed in the original IP and like over explain shit.
Mhm.
And I think The Thing 2011 is one of the earliest movies to really do that, because there are just so many moments where they're just beating you over the head with like, guys, look, this is how this got here. Like, remember the axe? That's how the axe got there. That's
Even
how.
though there's really no reason why it should have been there entirely.
Yeah,
I remember
and
that moment
it
being like really fucking
it
stupid.
disregards everything about it. Like the entire like here was the only thing I liked about The Thing 2011. I liked that they used the old style Universal logo at the beginning of the movie. That's it. Like, I just thought that was nice and retro. But that's pretty much fucking it. And like it opens really similarly to how Arrival opens, where it's like this scientist who's like the head of her like business or whatever. She gets called in to do like this really obscure thing, and then when they're on the helicopter ride, they're talking to like the other like male lead, and it's like this whole mix up with like the headphones, and I was just very taken off guard with just like it's literally like exactly how Arrival opens up. And then I looked it up, and Eric Heiser wrote both movies. So like I'm just like, wait, did he just like switch words around to like, and this is how he like came up with Arrival? And like at least Arrival had a really fucking good director at the helm, so like at least that movie looked nice and had atmosphere and a cool tone and good music. But this movie, it's just like you got a fucking director for hire. The movie has no visual personality to it. All the characters are fucking morons, so the writing just doesn't like go into anything. There were so many moments I was just yelling at the screen because of how moronic everybody is. And also, obviously, big elephant in the room, the fucking CGI. Holy shit. Fucking Christ. If you guys want to talk about it, I just...
Man,
It's
the CGI, it's not even like super bloody. It's so rubbery and so fake and so.
It's literally, it looks so computery. Like I don't.
Yeah, it's
I
PS3
don't
graphics.
Get why anyone thought that was a good idea? I don't understand
It's
why people thought they
fun.
were going to remake one of the biggest staples in practical effects ever fucking made and just paint CGI garbage on it.
Yeah,
I
it was
do not
mostly the
understand what
studio's
was going
fault
through your head.
for that
I
one.
know,
Yeah.
but even from a studio perspective, I guarantee you that you were just setting yourself up for disaster. Like you
Oh,
knew
of
it
course.
wouldn't have made money because no one's going to go see a CGI remake of a staple of practical effects. That's why people hate the fucking new Jurassic Park movies, because it's all CGI bullshit. No one likes this. No one ever likes this, and I don't
Yeah.
understand why it keeps happening. The Bucks doesn't stop with this one, but it definitely goes through this one. This one is at fault. And I used to give it a 3 because I liked how it a 3 out of 10 because I liked how it was like somewhat, dedicated to the consistency. But nowadays I'm like, no, I don't know. No,
Yeah.
not even
Drop
that.
the movie that's mystery. Like,
They're stupid because they have stupid reasons to keep to that continuity. Like the scene with the axe. Like Mary Elizabeth Winstead is like, no, leave it. Why? Why leave a weapon there for no reason? And then there's
I
like the
understand
scene
why they
where
would leave it. I
yeah, and then
understand
there's
why
a scene where the character commits suicide. It's like, okay, but like that was your best just because he's there alone? Like it just felt out of nowhere. None of it like feels genuine. It just feels like they just put it there for the sake of putting it there. And also, I never liked that whole like, oh yeah, it can't imitate inorganic objects. Yeah, we kind of know that, but the original movie like uses the clothes, it rips through clothes to get to you, and it's like
Mhm.
why do you gotta bring in this whole new layer of just confusing plot development that also, by the way, is not consistent with the rules that you set for the film. There are multiple scenes where it's like the character is like where the alien is like being discovered, and it's like how where does the thing get clothes? What do you mean it eats carefully around the body or around the clothes and into the body? I don't know. This movie just makes me angry, and
Whoever's
I
wearing different clothes.
but
Like
yeah. At
it
least with
also like
the thing in the original, they're wearing different clothes after they've been assimilated. They take the time to do that because yeah, the thing would put on different clothes.
Yeah, the way they hyper focus on like the teeth and the fillings, how it can't recreate that, it ultimately leads to the scene where they try to I guess recreate the scene in the original with the blood sample. They're like, all right, let's check your teeth and see if you have fillings. It's like not everybody's gonna have fillings, dude.
Yeah. The character literally says, "So I'm gonna die because I
Yeah, because I floss.
brush my teeth." Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
so dumb.
Obviously, no fucking shit that won't work. And also, I hate this shit so much. Where the character, I guess the Joel Edgerton character, he has like an earring, and then Mary Elizabeth Winstead like kills him because the thing like I guess can't imitate an earring. That's stupid because an earring can be taken off and put back in.
Yeah, you can
Fillings
just
can't.
pierce it. You can just pierce that shit. Like, why didn't the
Literally,
thing pierce a hole into his ear? Like,
I don't get it.
No,
There's
and it
Yeah,
literally
makes
what's
so
the
much.
difference between the metal in the earring and the metal on their belts? It's just
Exactly.
so
It's like
it also
creates so
completely
much problem.
Yeah, it destroys the ambiguity of the original movie as well because now that
Yeah.
establishes canonically that Childs is actually not the thing
Such a
because
stupid
Childs still
retcon.
has his earring on his right fucking ear at the end of the movie. So
Yeah.
now you're
Yeah.
just like retconning shit, and also like it makes the beginning of the movie of the original thing even more contrived because now it's just the majority of the base was fluent in English except for this one guy who magically made it out and can't speak English to like
Yeah, what a
actually
fucking
explain to all the
coincidence,
main
right?
characters. It just makes everything so much worse. And like, one thing I did want to bring up, Xander, was the thing about the axe. I understand why they didn't want to pick it up because the cells are still the thing, but it doesn't make sense why they don't fucking burn the axe. Fucking use your
Or
flamethrower.
that, yeah.
Burn the axe. Like,
He's holding the
you're just gonna
flamethrower.
leave it there because that's
And
a thing.
also,
All that blood is like little mini things. That's
Also,
established.
I hate this thing. I hate this. When they're like when Joel Edgerton and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, they're like in the snowcat together, and she's like, "Oh, what happened to Lars?" Which apparently is the name of that fucking pilot on the or the name of the fucking rifle dude on the helicopter. He's like, "Oh, we didn't kill him." That's it, and that's how he gets away simply because he was unconscious in a back room. Like, really?
Makes
What
no
the
sense.
shit?
There was literally a
It's
fake out of
such
him getting like fucked up by the dude from Force Majeure. He like saw him get fucked up in the fucking cold. There was just a
Yeah.
bullshit fake out.
it just
It's
seems like their
ridiculous.
interests are in the wrong areas, you know?
Yeah.
It's like they try to
They
make all these
replace-
practical effects, but like they're stealing exactly the same beats from the first movie. It's
Yeah,
like,
they
I have
oh,
a
replace-
question
they
about the
replace the
prequel.
yeah, go ahead.
How does it tie in like to the original film?
It's about the Norwegians. It's about the Norwegian base that they came across in the original.
Yeah. In the end of the
Ones that
movie,
found
there's a shot where the dog
Okay.
escapes, and then he shoots at it, and the dog is like a grayish, almost white color. And then they cut to shots from the John Carpenter's The Thing, and it's
Yeah,
like
they
the
cut
dog
to the
is
original.
darker and more black,
I
and
know,
it's
it
like
was
they
like,
couldn't
what?
even match it up.
You couldn't even like slightly edit it to make it look like it were darker. Like, come on. They replaced the ambiguity of the original with contrived, complicated nonsense that kills brain cells the more I look into it. I literally feel like I'm getting dumber the farther I go into this movie. Like this is why I watched it through, like, when I first watched it, I watched it, like, honestly, I watched it from start to finish, hated it. And this newest watch, I just kind of skipped through it a bunch. Like, I
I
literally
did
would watch
too.
10
Yeah.
minutes. I would watch 10 minutes, then skip a few minutes, then watch 10 more or 15 more minutes, and then skip another few minutes. Like, I would just skip through it. Literally, my entire dedication to this movie was like an hour long, and I'm so fucking glad, because I probably would have rated this lower if I dedicated a full viewing. I already lessened my rating to a 2 out of 10. It would probably be
Yeah.
a 1 out of 10 if I actually dedicated a
Yeah.
watch to this. But that on its own is sad. I don't want to dedicate a watch to this piece of garbage.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. It doesn't deserve it. Like,
I skipped the whole scene where they went to the spaceship. You know, I was just like, I know what's gonna happen. Just get on with it. Just kill each other
They
already.
go to the spaceship and then the thing like tries to chase after her and then she rounds a
Oh god.
corner and the
yeah.
thing can't reach her despite the fact that they
Oh,
established that the thing can
stupid.
manipulate into any shape dimension. Like, you
Yeah.
fucking kidding me? It's so stupid. Like, I
No, and
mean, like,
also,
Mary Elizabeth
didn't they
Winstead-
show off? Didn't they, like, canonically apply, like, oh, this is what the thing really looks like? And it's like, really?
kind of like the Tetris machine or whatever, or
Exactly.
or-
Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I know what that is actually, because they initially had like this different alien design that was used, because like the whole reason the movie looks like so shitty CGI is because they CG'd over all the practical effects they made for
Which
the movie.
is retarded as shit, but
Yeah,
keep going.
it's fucking horrible idea. Like, because I've seen so many of the videos of Amalgamated Dynamics doing that shit, and they're interesting, because even though, like, obviously the writing would still be shit, at least there would have been cool practical effects associated with it. But then they
Right?
just CGI'd over it with fucking Tetris? Like, why? It's so dumb. Like,
Yeah, again, like we said, their priorities are in the wrong places. They prioritize the things that shouldn't be prioritized, and they get rid of the things that should have been prioritized. Again, they replaced the ambiguity of the original film with convoluted nonsense that gets worse the more you think about it. Literally, this film's logic completely falls apart the longer you get into it, you know?
yeah. Even then, I would be okay with it as long as if the characters were good. But even the characters are just
They're
inconsistent.
terrible. They're awful.
They just fucking do whatever the fuck they want whenever the script needs them to. Like, Mary Elizabeth Winstead like finds out about the filling shit, and then she like she finds out about like the assimilation thing, and then she waits until the next morning to tell anybody. Like, what are
No.
you fucking doing? You're a scientist, woman. Like, seriously, fucking like do shit. Fucking, and like the minute she like brings it up to everybody, like the only other person who saw it was like, no, I don't know what I saw. And I'm like, what are you doing?
What are you talking about?
Like, everybody in this movie is a fucking moron.
I
That
hate
whole
that with
secret
my
helicopter
favorite
is-
movies, there's always, like, my favorite horror movie is The Thing, and my favorite movie is Old Boy. With both of those, there's a shitty fucking remake that kills everything about it. And I'm so glad that The Thing, at least, that people acknowledge that the remake is forgettable garbage and that the original is great. But with fucking American people, no one's seen, like, not a lot of people have seen the original Old Boy compared to the American one. So I have to deal with that bullshit.
The last thing I wanted to bring up about the thing is how it also ruins how the thing works in the original movie, just based on like how in every single scene the thing just decides to reveal itself at super inopportune moments.
Yep.
Like, it's literally like the bit where Juliet is like, hey, I think I saw somebody else in that shower. And then Mary Elizabeth Winstead turns around and then Juliet immediately reveals that she's a thing. I'm like, what possible benefit could you have from doing that? Like, it makes no sense. Why are you doing shit like this? And also like the fact where like, I don't remember the name of his character, but the dude from Force Majeure, when he was carrying that other dude and then the thing, like his hand comes off and it's revealed to be a thing. I'm like, what possible reason could you have for doing that? Like,
Yeah.
why are you doing that? It's not specifically doing anything. At least with the defibrillator scene, you could infer that possibly the defibrillator might be causing pain to the thing. And that's
Exactly,
why
and it's defending
tries to
itself,
rock
and it has to.
defending itself. It never reveals itself unless it's absolutely necessary to get out of a situation or to assimilate somebody. And they just throw that
Exactly.
shit out the window in this fucking movie.
But in this movie, it just becomes a dumb bullshit like plot device, and it just kind of just does whatever the fuck it wants. And it's like
Yeah,
it
here's the scene
kills
where
all
everybody
the
needs to
intelligence
turn.
that the original built up for it. It's like the
Mhm.
alien was intimidating in the original, obviously, and in this new one, there's no intimidation because it doesn't use logic or strategy to its advantage.
If
It
I
is like,
may
oh,
quote
that.
Joker, why
Oh,
so
great.
salty?
Yeah, no,
Bro, you're
that's
Bro, even the jump scares are just so terrible.
the jump scares are
Is it-
also like
it's
total
so
garbage.
obnoxious, man.
But I hate when people prioritize Easter eggs and references over good writing. So like,
Remember the
Yeah.
thing?
guys, the fact that it like came out as early as 2011 just serves as a testament to like,
Yeah, it literally came out
Oh,
less than
movie.
10 years ago.
like this is just like people because people always talk about like, oh, that's like a thing now, like, but no,
Oh, yeah.
it's been a thing for a while
It's been
now.
happening. It's
And
the
then
I like to call it the
and
solo
they're still
moment.
doing it and also with the new Halloween remake, they haven't stopped.
They
They're just-
brought back the old characters from the original in Halloween Kills.
Yeah,
I'm
the
like,
characters.
why?
You remember that random?
And now
Can
they're
we
doing
remember that
get
random
more
school
Rob
boy?
Zombie Halloween?
I mean,
I
at
would
least
much
those
rather-
were
I would
original
honestly
somewhat.
I would honestly rather watch those than the remakes. To be 100.
I
I
would
would rather
love to
watch
watch
Halloween
like
2
10 more
over
of
The
those.
Thing 2011 again, 100%.
Let's
Like,
go.
at least Halloween 2 tried to do something interesting instead of just repeating the same bullshit. And that's like
Yeah.
one of my other biggest issues with The Thing 2011. It's just the same movie.
It's literally just it's just a reference. It's just one big fucking reference, but even the reference that can't get the reference right.
It was upon like that was the movie that sort of made me be like, wait a minute, this is the no, because like it everything like really clicked in. And when I watched like Arrival, I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe a good director can really save like material like this. Because as aforementioned, I rewatched Arrival and I wasn't as big of a fan of it as I used to be. But this is just like there's nothing. There's not even like interesting. Like there's not even good acting or like
Yeah.
any. It's just
Yeah, the
so
characters are dog shit. Like I remember everyone from the original, and I just don't remember anybody here. I don't even remember like it's not even about them having like, oh yeah, because they have Norwegian names and they're hard to pronounce. It's not even that bullshit. It's like I can't even identify their character trait. You know?
Bro, the next
Like,
Squid Game is gonna be name one of the character traits in The Thing 2011.
I will die on
You'll
hotkey.
die.
I'll
You'll
commit
die.
suicide just to
Season
get out of
2.
that game. Season 2.
It's strange. A
man.
prequel that is
yeah.
exactly the same as the one it's imitating.
Exactly. It's just the same thing over again, but much, much worse.
it's a testament to like how individual.
Attack of the Clones wipes.
Yeah, Attack of the Clones. I'd rather watch the prequels over the Thing prequel.
Let's fucking
To be
go.
100% honest, I hate to say this, but
Prequels are
honestly,
so
me too.
good.
I
totally
would rather watch I would rather watch the prequels, even if I don't like them. I would
Because at
rather
least
watch
the
them
prequels have
over
some
this.
funny shit in them.
Yeah, I would actually watch them with the my buddy and I. We discovered I think we discovered this from like the YMS Twitter or something, but he was
Oh,
watching
the-
it with the
I know what you're talking about.
like the automated
audio?
helper. Yeah,
English
scripted audio
audio.
where it's like for deaf people, sorry, for blind people.
Obi-Wan and Darth Maul faced off against a bottomless shaft.
Exactly.
Like, shit.
Like that's fucking hilarious. I would watch that on hotkey.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
All right, so going back to The Thing 1982, let's just wrap up and say our scores.
So yeah, it's a masterpiece. It is virtually flawless when it comes to everything about it. It's a movie where everybody brought their A game, and it really shows in the presentation and its execution and everything. It's scary, it's darkly funny, and it's got brilliant performances, characters, everything. And yeah, 10 out of 10. The Thing 2011, 1 out of 10.
I was about to make a joke after like you saying all that praise. I was gonna be like, yeah, I love The Thing 2011.
Yeah. The Thing from Another World, I'd probably give it like a 5 or a 6. I don't know.
Bob.
As we say, se bien el kino, is what I have to say.
100%.
Amazing film. I had a pleasure watching it. I'll gladly like come visit it again and like maybe pick up on those details that you were talking about. There's like clever little things, that you can't really notice on the first watch. But I'm very glad that I did get a chance to watch it for the first time for like Halloween and talk about it in this forum. And yeah, great movie. I'll give it a high 9 out of 10.
Sheesh.
Ronnie?
All right. It's the best John Carpenter. No competition, for me at least. It's also some of the best work in these actors' performances. It's definitely like top 3 Kurt Russell. I loved it. It's fantastic. Looks
Top 1.
flawless. You know, it still holds up after all this time. And love it. Give it a 9. 9 out of 10. Strong 9. I'll probably give it like 2 more watches, and then I'll give it a 10. Xander.
Well, it's my favorite horror film. It always has been, and it still is, and it probably will be for a very long time. I've never had any doubt as to just how impactful and infamous this movie is. It really is just the pinnacle of exactly what I look for in a horror film. Like, I just want smart characters, an intimidating yet reasonably uninvincible villain, and a location that is not only unique or at the very least adds its own unique, challenges. Honestly, it's just the perfect horror movie. And really, honestly, it's airtight. It's just a movie that I can't call perfect, but it is really close. And it's a lot closer than a lot of like art movies that I would say, like it really is up there. It is in my top 15 favorites. It's been one of my favorite films for a very long time, and I just will always have a place in my heart for this wonderful masterpiece. I'm giving this one a 10 out of 10.
Strong 10 to light 10.
And Thing prequel is a 2 out of 10, and I didn't finish Thing from Another World, so I'm going to abstain from a rating for that one.
All right, before we go, we got to do one more thing, and that thing is the next recommendation, and it's by Xander. So, go ahead.
All right, so I've built it up. I've teased y'all. I've been relatively obvious with what I'm gonna be recommending with you guys, down to me straight up telling y'all. I'm gonna recommend Ken Russell's damn near masterpiece from 1971, The Devils.
Xavier El Kino.
Yes, sir. And it is infamous for being one of those movies that was banned for a very long time. Couldn't be found much of anywhere until it finally got a bit of a release, and now it's like available online, and I think it has a DVD release in England, but I'm not gonna buy it because it doesn't contain the most important scene of the movie.
Yeah, the scene is like in like really shitty quality when you watch it now.
Yeah. We'll talk about it when the conversation comes.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about this masterpiece, or damn near masterpiece. I'm really excited.
So watch that and join us in on the conversation. And as always, thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next one. Peace.
Dankeschön.